My wife and her brother stole $250, $0 from our family estate, then sued me for damages over a property dispute I didn't even know existed. Now I'm fighting to keep everything they betrayed. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, telling my story because I know someone out there probably needs to hear it. It all started with what seemed like small, almost insignificant signs, things I brushed off at first. But looking back, those signs should have been a red flag from the start. My wife Jessica had always been a little bitchy about her privacy, quick to dismiss any concerns I raised. She'd roll her eyes or snap at me, saying I was just paranoid or insecure. But sometimes her attitude shifted from just bitchy to outright suspicious. We'd been married for about 6 years when I started noticing her phone acting weird. She'd hide it more often, even when I was just sitting next to her. Texts would come in at odd hours, and she'd hurriedly lock her screen or toss the phone onto the bed when I looked her way. I figured she was just dealing with some work stuff or maybe a friend she didn't want me to know about. I didn't want to be that guy who snoops, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came the money stuff. Jessica always loved her shopping sprees, but suddenly she was spending way more than usual. She'd come home with bags from designer stores, claiming she'd found a sale. I didn't think much of it at first. She's always been like that. But then I noticed her withdrawing a lot of cash from our joint account, amounts I didn't recognize. I asked her about it and she brushed me off, saying it was for some girl's trip she was planning or some emergency fund she was setting up. I trusted her, or at least I tried to, but deep down I felt something was wrong. One day, I decided to check our bank statements online after she left her phone on the kitchen counter. I saw a series of transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Large sums like $50, $0 here, another $30, $0 there. I stared at the screen trying to make sense of it. My stomach dropped. That was a lot of money. I knew we weren't rich, not by Hollywood standards, but we were comfortable. The idea that she was stealing from our family estate, $250 to be exact, made my blood run cold. I had no idea she was capable of that. My mind raced. How could she betray us like this? How could she steal that much money and lie about it? The biggest shock came when I found out she'd been lying about her whereabouts. She'd been going out late, staying over at friends' houses, claiming she was working late or meeting some new girl she met at her gym. But the truth was, she was with her brother, Dave, and some guy she'd been hooking up with, some guy I'd never even heard of. She'd been cheating on me, and all the while she was siphoning money from our estate. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. I couldn't believe I was living with a woman who was so dishonest, so manipulative. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to gather my thoughts, figure out what I was dealing with. I felt betrayed on every level, by her lies, by her betrayal of our marriage and our family. I was furious, but I also felt heartbreak. How did I not see the signs? How did I miss the fact that the woman I loved was capable of this? I kept asking myself if I was blind or just stupid for trusting her so blindly. The worst part, knowing she was still lying, still hiding things, and probably planning her next move. I knew I had to confront her soon, but I also knew that my life was about to change forever. The day I finally decided to confront Jessica was the worst day of my life. I had all these thoughts swirling in my head, angry, betrayed, confused. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I knew I had to face her, and I needed to do it carefully but also be firm. I waited until she got home from her work meeting, which I now knew was just another lie she told to cover her tracks. I had the bank statements printed out, the texts, everything. I was ready to get answers. When she walked in, all smiles, acting like everything was normal, I felt my blood boil. I took a deep breath, held the papers in my hand, and looked her straight in the eyes. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said with a calm but firm voice. She looked at me, that smug, bitchy smirk creeping across her face, and said, "What's wrong, babe? Did you forget our anniversary already?" That was her typical way of dismissing things, acting like I was overreacting, brushing aside the huge mess we were sitting in. I didn't buy it. I laid the papers on the table and watched her face change as she saw the bank statements. Her eyes widened for a split second, but then she quickly recovered and tried to brush it off. "That's nothing," she said, shrugging. "Just some stupid mistake, you're overthinking it." I wasn't buying that bullshit. I pushed the papers closer to her. "No, Jessica, this isn't a mistake. This is $250, $0 stolen from our family estate. Tell me what the hell is going on." Her face started to turn red and she started to lie about how she thought the money was a loan from her brother, how she was planning to pay it back, how she was just trying to help us out. But I knew better. I knew she was lying because I found the texts. She was having an affair with that guy, Ryan, and she'd been funneling money to him, probably for her side piece. She tried to cry her way out of it, saying I was accusing her of things I didn't understand, that I was paranoid and jealous. But I was done listening to her bullshit. I told her I knew everything, the cheating, the theft, the lies. That's when she snapped. "Oh, so now you're accusing me of everything. You're just jealous because I have a life outside of you," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. "You think I'd cheat on you? You're delusional. All I ever did was try to make things better for us." That's when I saw the true colors. She wasn't sorry. She was angry because I'd caught her and she was trying to turn it around on me. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could I have been so blind? How could I trust someone who lied and cheated and stole from us? I wanted to scream, to break something, but I kept my composure. I told her she needed to leave, that I wanted her out of the house immediately. She looked at me with pure venom and said she wasn't going anywhere, that she had rights, that she was entitled to her share. She even had the nerve to threaten me, saying she'd sue me for damages over some property dispute I didn't even know existed. The confrontation left me numb. I kept replaying everything in my head, the lies, the betrayal, the money, her affair. I'd never felt so humiliated and angry in my life. It was like my entire world had shattered in that moment. I realized then that our marriage was over, but the worst part was knowing she'd probably get away with everything. Her lies, her cheating, the money. I felt helpless and furious all at once, knowing I was about to fight not just for my marriage but for what was left of my family's legacy. After that confrontation, everything changed. Jessica refused to leave and she doubled down on her lies, insisting she was innocent and that I was overreacting. She sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed, with that bitchy smirk still on her face. I felt a mixture of disgust and determination. I knew I couldn't just let her get away with this. She'd stolen from us, lied to my face, and now she was trying to manipulate her way out of it. I called a lawyer immediately. I wanted to understand what rights I had, especially since she was claiming ownership of property I didn't even know about and threatening to sue me. That lawyer told me I had a solid case to recover the stolen money, and I could also block her from selling or claiming any part of the estate until everything was sorted out. It was a small comfort, but it made me feel a little less helpless. In the days that followed, I started digging into her finances more. I found even more disturbing things, texts between her and Ryan, her lover, talking about how they were planning to run away together once she got her hands on the estate's money. I also discovered she'd been secretly funneling money into accounts under her brother Dave's name, trying to hide how much she'd taken. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was realizing I'd been blind to all of it for so long. Meanwhile, Jessica was still living in the house, refusing to leave. She'd call me every day, crying, begging me to forgive her, saying she loved me and that she'd change. I didn't buy it. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd finally uncovered the truth. Still, the emotional toll was immense. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. One night, I caught her sneaking around the house with her brother Dave. I saw them through the window, whispering and giggling like teenagers. That was the last straw. I knew then that I had to take action to protect myself and what was left of my family's estate. I decided to file for a temporary restraining order to keep her away from the property and to freeze all her accounts. I wanted her out of my life, completely. The legal process moved fast. Jessica's attitude shifted from bitchy and defiant to desperate and angry. She started accusing me of trying to ruin her, claiming I was just jealous and controlling. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I was determined to fight for what was mine. The more she lied, the clearer it became that she was trying to cover her tracks to avoid facing the consequences of her actions. In the meantime, I was dealing with the fallout from her accusations of damages and property disputes. She filed a claim against me, claiming I owed her for emotional damages and loss of reputation. It was ridiculous, but I knew it was part of her game, trying to drag things out, trying to turn me into the bad guy. I had to stay strong, stick to the facts, and let the law do its job. I knew she was reckless, but I wasn't going down without a fight. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. I vacillated between anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief that I'd finally uncovered her lies. But the betrayal cut so deep that I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. Still, I knew this wasn't just about her cheating or stealing. It was about me reclaiming my life, my dignity, and what was rightfully ours. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I'd worked for, and I was determined to see this through to the end. The legal battle dragged on, and every day felt like a new assault on my sanity. Jessica's attorneys tried every trick in the book, filing motions to delay proceedings, claiming I was trying to intimidate her, and even accusing me of harassment. Honestly, I didn't care. All I wanted was to get her out of my life and recover what she had stolen. The court orders I obtained kept her at bay, but her defiance only grew more aggressive. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her finances. I found out she'd been secretly meeting with her brother Dave, planning how to hide the money and how to fight me in court. They'd been talking about breaking me down, trying to make me look like the bad guy. I discovered she'd also taken out loans in my name, something I never authorized, and racked up huge credit card debts under aliases. It was like she'd planned this entire betrayal for months, maybe longer. I felt like I was spiraling. I'd trusted her for so many years, and now I was faced with the reality that she'd been lying about everything. Her fidelity, her loyalty, her love. She lied about her feelings, her intentions, and her morals. The woman I thought I knew was a fraud, a con artist hiding behind a pretty face and a bitchy attitude. I'd never felt so humiliated and angry. Every time I thought I was close to finally getting her out of my house and reclaiming my life, she'd come up with some new scheme to delay or manipulate the court system. One of the most shocking moments came when I found out she'd been secretly funneling money into offshore accounts. I was stunned. How many lies could one person tell? It was like peeling back layers of a rotten onion. I had to hire investigators to track her activities, and what they uncovered was worse than I expected. She'd been planning her escape for months, and her brother Dave was right there with her, helping her hide assets and prepare for a big move. The emotional toll was brutal. I was angry at her, yes, but also deeply hurt. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her lies. I'd always thought we had a good life, that we were building something solid. Now I saw it was just a house of cards built on deception. I wondered how I could ever trust again, how I could ever look at another woman without suspicion. Despite all this chaos, I tried to focus on what mattered, saving what was left of my estate and protecting myself legally. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd taken or hidden. It was expensive, but I knew I had to do it. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that she was a master manipulator, a liar who'd been planning her escape for a long time. I realized I couldn't just wait around for her to make her next move. I had to be proactive. The worst part was feeling like I was fighting a losing battle. Jessica's attitude was contemptuous. She would call me names, accuse me of ruining her life, and threaten to take everything I had. She'd cry crocodile tears, pretending to be the victim, even as she plotted her next move behind my back. It was exhausting. Every day seemed to bring a new shock, another lie, another betrayal, another legal twist. But I knew I had to hold onto my resolve. I was determined not to let her win. Not to let her steal everything from me, my reputation, my estate, my dignity. I started documenting everything, every phone call, every lie, every financial transaction. I kept copies of all the court documents, all the evidence of her deception. I realized that this wasn't just about money. It was about integrity, about standing up for what's right, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. I was in a war and I wasn't going to back down. The courtroom battles became my new reality. Jessica's lawyers kept pushing for delays, trying to muddy the waters with technicalities and bogus claims. She showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to act innocent and betrayed like she was the victim here. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. I had all the evidence: bank statements, text messages, offshore account details, witness testimonies, and I was determined to see justice done. One day during a hearing, I finally got the chance to lay everything bare. I presented the court with the full extent of her betrayal, how she'd stolen from our estate, lied about her whereabouts, and manipulated her way into hiding assets. I also brought forward the evidence of her affair with Ryan, the guy she'd been cheating with behind my back. Seeing her squirm under oath was almost satisfying, but it was also heartbreaking. I realized I was fighting not just for money or property, but for my dignity and the truth. Jessica's reaction was classic. She tried to gaslight the court, claiming I was overreacting, that I was just jealous, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She even accused me of domestic abuse, which was completely fabricated. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, and full of lies. But I had my own witnesses, friends and family who saw her secret meetings, her secret bank accounts, her lies, and they testified against her. The judge looked at all the evidence, and I could tell he was starting to see through her bullshit. The legal process was exhausting. I had to be patient, keep my emotions in check, and stay focused on the goal. I knew Jessica would try every trick to manipulate the court, but I was prepared. I had hired a forensic accountant, a private investigator, and a top-notch lawyer. I wasn't going down without a fight. Every day I spent in court, I felt a little more confident that I'd get justice. Meanwhile, Jessica's attitude grew even more hostile. She called me every name in the book: controlling, jealous, possessive, and accused me of being the reason she was forced to cheat and steal. She claimed I was emotionally abusive, that I drove her to it. It was all projection. I could see right through her game. She was desperate, and her desperation made her more bitchy, more manipulative. The turning point came when the judge ordered her to turn over the offshore accounts and all the hidden assets. She refused at first, claiming she had a right to keep her money, but the evidence was overwhelming. I felt a surge of relief when the judge ruled in my favor, freezing her assets and appointing a receiver to oversee the estate's management. It was a huge win, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. Throughout all of this, I was also reflecting on how much I'd changed. I'd gone from a trusting, naive husband to someone hardened by betrayal. I'd learned the hard way that you can't always trust the people closest to you. I'd also realized how fragile life can be when someone you love turns out to be a liar and a thief. It's a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. Looking back, I understand that this experience has made me stronger. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the signs of deception. I also know that I can stand up for myself, that I don't have to accept betrayal or manipulation. Jessica's betrayal didn't just cost me money. It cost me my peace of mind, my trust, and my sense of security. But I'm still here, still fighting, and I refuse to let her take everything. I want others to see that even when the world feels like it's crashing down around you, you can find the strength to fight back and reclaim what's yours. After everything was said and done, I finally managed to get Jessica out of my life and stabilize what was left of the estate. The court's rulings and the evidence I presented made it clear she was a con artist, a cheater, and a thief. But even with the legal victory, the emotional scars linger. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, doesn't mend easily. I've learned that betrayal cuts deeper than money, though in my case it was both. The aftermath was a mix of relief and reflection. I had to rebuild my sense of security piece by piece. I've since sold the house, moved to a new place, and changed my phone number. I cut off all contact with Jessica and her brother Dave. I realized I had been living in a kind of fog, accepting her lies, pretending everything was okay just to keep some semblance of normalcy. That's over now. I refuse to let her define my life anymore. Looking back, I see how naive I'd been. I trusted her blindly, believing she was the woman I married and loved. But her actions showed she was capable of anything: lies, theft, betrayal. It's a hard lesson, but one I wouldn't trade. Now I know to pay attention to the little signs, to listen to that gut feeling when something feels off. I also understand the importance of protecting myself legally and financially, especially when someone close to you turns out to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. I want anyone reading this to know that even when it feels like your world is crumbling, you can survive and even come out stronger on the other side. It's not easy, it's messy, painful, and exhausting, but you have to keep fighting for yourself, for your dignity, for what's right. Don't let betrayal define you. You're stronger than you think, especially when you stand your ground. Finally, I've come to accept that some people are just beyond saving. Jessica's bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all prove she was not the woman I thought I knew. But I also realize that I am not a victim. I am a survivor. I've learned to trust myself again, to rebuild my life, and to move forward. I don't hold on to resentment anymore. I hold on to the lessons. And I hope that anyone else going through something similar finds the strength to do the same. This experience has broken me in some ways, but it's also made me more resilient. I now see the importance of honesty, loyalty, and integrity, things I once took for granted. I'll never forget what I went through, but I refuse to let it define my future. I'm moving on, wiser and stronger, knowing that no matter how much someone betrays you, you can still rise from the ashes.